Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. I'm Benji Messer, music director. I use he, him pronouns. I'm glad to have Taylisa and the choir with me today to provide some music for you. Today is our second service in this series on radical inclusion, and we begin again with Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Thank you again, as I mentioned last week, for masking so that CB, our guest preacher, can safely preach to us unmasked and thus be a little more accessible by everyone listening. Let's go ahead and stand. And we'll start with, there's a Come, Come, Whoever You Are is a chant, and there's an ostinato, a repeated part that though we've broken our vows 1,000 times. It goes like this. Let's sing it together. Though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows 1,000 times, though we've broken our vows. And here's the melody. Again. And those two parts fit together, so take your pick. Again. Come yet again, come. Thank you all. Please remain standing for our chalice lighting.
This morning, Rowan Sprickerhoff will be lighting our chalice. Sprickerhoff will be. So again, welcome. In this sacred space, we celebrate our humanity, our diversity, and the boundless love that unites us all. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, one that is theologically diverse, radically inclusive, and justice-centered. Our doors swing wide open to embrace all who seek a welcoming place. May our worship today be a source of inspiration and a comfort in challenging times and a call to action. Our minister, Reverend Christine Dance, is on sabbatical until the end of July. This sabbatical is both part of her contract with us, but also a necessary spiritual practice of rest and recovery from the challenges of ministry. During this time, we'll have a wonderful range of Unitarian Universalist preachers to lead us in worship, each with a unique perspective. They will be joining us for 1 to 3 weeks at a time, and our caring ministry team will support pastoral care. We hope the sabbatical will be a time of exploration, appreciation, and community. If you're new here, we're so glad that you found us. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. I have a few announcements to make. The annual UUCP picnic, sponsored by the UUCP Foundation, will be held at noon on Sunday on April 6th. This event will be held in the green space near the annex and playground. Our crack grilling team, led by Jeff Anderla will be cooking hamburgers and hot dogs with meatless options available. We need your help. If possible for you, please bring a favorite side dish to share. If no side dish comes to mind, bring cookies or dessert. You can stash your dish in the kitchen before service. Please label your dish so folks know the ingredients. If you can't bring food, no worries. Just bring you and your family. A bill, ironically called the SAVE Act, has been introduced in Congress. If passed, it would throw up obstacles to voting, especially for folks whose names don't match what's on their birth certificate. Rural voters and many others will be affected by this as well. Flyers on the back of the table make it easy to register your objection. Next Sunday, March 30th at 1 p.m., here in our sanctuary, our pianist, Talisi, am I saying that right? Talise. Oh, I'm so sorry. And that's after I asked you how to say your name. My bad. Next Sunday, March 30th at 1 p.m. here in our sanctuary, our pianist, Talise, will play a free recital in partial completion for her doctorate. She'll be joined by 2 violinists and bassoonists. And now, let me introduce our guest speaker for the second week, CB Beal. CB specializes, yes. So CB specializes in facilitating learning experiences that involve issues of marginalization, oppression, and privilege, helping participants hold the complexities of our lives in perspective to co-create a safer, braver space within which people can be challenged and to learn and grow. Thank you so much for joining us, CB. And being a special part of this radical sabbatical. CB will be leading a workshop on March 29th at the UU in Surprise on Preemptive Radical Inclusion. So if you want to hear more after today, please sign up so they can make sure that there are enough lunches for everybody. And now for our opening words.
That workshop builds on what we're doing with these sermons, just so you know. It's not like a repetition. Our opening words today are from In Our Circle Again by Shari Woodbury. We are here in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows, faced and befriended. With a servant's heart, with a leader's listening, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds. I now invite anyone who would like to come together, to come forward for Together Time. The story today is called There's No Such Thing as a Dragon by Jack Kent. Billy Bixby was rather surprised when they woke up one morning and found a dragon in their room. It was a small dragon, about the size of a kitten. The dragon waggled its tail happily when Billy patted its head. Billy went downstairs to tell their mother, "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Billy's mother. Billy went back to their room and began to get dressed. The dragon came close to Billy and waggled its tail, but Billy didn't pat it. If there's no such thing as something, it's silly to pat it on its head. Billy washed their face and hands and went down to breakfast. The dragon went along. It was bigger now, almost the size of a dog. Billy sat down at the table. The dragon sat on the table. Now, this sort of thing was not usually permitted, but there wasn't much Billy's mother could do about it. She had already said there's no such thing as a dragon, and if there's no such thing as something, you can't very well tell it to get down off the table. Mother made some pancakes for Billy, but the dragon ate them all. Mother made more, but the dragon ate those too. Mother kept making pancakes until she ran out of batter. Billy only got one of them, but they said that's all they really wanted anyway. Billy went upstairs to brush their teeth, and Mother started cleaning the table. The dragon, who was quite as big as Mother by this time, made itself comfortable on the hall rug and went to sleep. By the time Billy came back downstairs, the dragon had grown so much that it filled the hallway. Billy had to go around by way of the living room just to get to where their mother was. I didn't know dragons grew so fast, said Billy. There's no such thing as a dragon. Mother spent all morning going back and forth between the computer on her desk and the kitchen while Billy played. She told herself that she went the long way around through the den for the exercise, certainly not because there was a dragon in the hallway. After lunch, Mother began to go out the kitchen window, around the house, and then come back in the room where her computer was, since the dragon had by now blocked all the doorways in the hallway. But she told herself it's for the fresh air, since there's no such thing as a dragon. By mid-afternoon, the dragon filled the whole house. Its head hung out the front door and down the steps. Its tail hung out the back door, and there was not a room in the house that did not have a part of a dragon in it. The dragon snored softly. Oliver. But when it did, the whole house vibrated. When the dragon woke up from its nap, it was peckish. And about 15 seconds later, it was hungry. A bakery truck went by, and the smell of fresh bread was more than the dragon could resist. And the dragon ran down the street after the bakery truck. The house went along, of course, like a shell on a snail or a house on a dragon. The mail carrier was just coming up the path with some mail for the Bixbys when their house rushed past him and ran down the street. He chased the Bixby's house for a few blocks, but he couldn't catch it. People came out of their own houses and stood on their porches as the house and then the mail carrier went by. They thought maybe it's one of these fancy new outdoor birthday parades people have sometimes. But no. When Mr. Bixby came home after his long day at work, the first thing he noticed, his house was missing. Luckily, one of the neighbors was able to call from the porch and tell him which way the house had gone. Mr. Bixby got in his bike and went looking for the house. He studied all the houses as he rode along, and finally he saw one that was familiar. Billy and Mrs. Bixby waved from the upstairs window. Hi. Hi, Dad. Don't be mad. Mr. Bixby climbed up over the dragon's head, up the dragon's neck, over the porch roof, and climbed in the second floor window and said, in his best, I'm trying to be calm right now voice, how did this happen? It was the dragon, said Billy. There's no such thing. Billy said, there is a dragon, and it is a very big dragon. And Billy reached out the window and patted the dragon on its head. The dragon waggled its tail happily, and then, even faster than it had grown, the dragon started getting smaller until it was kitten-sized again. "Oh," said Mother, I don't mind dragons this size, but why did it have to grow so big?" "I'm not sure," said Billy, "but I think it needed us to notice it and tell the truth." Thank you for listening to my story.
Each week, we split our offering between this congregation and an organization that shares our values. Our Share the Plate partner this March is the Jewish Community Relations Council, or JCRC. JCRC works to keep the Jewish community safe in these times of hate and anti-Semitism. They also create partnerships through faith and ethnic and other community groups to create common table. They help all people fight intolerance and provide a rapid, meaningful response when anyone is targeted with hate because of who they are. JCRC was instrumental in UUCP to UUCP when we were targeted by white Christian nationalists in 2022 through 2024. They have provided meaningful response, resources, and pastoral care at no cost to us and with generous hearts. We are grateful to your contributions to help show them our appreciation and support for all that you give. We are so grateful. Ushers, thank you for your willing hands in helping us pass the plate. We recognize that our lives are interconnected. Part of our journey as a community is sharing our significant milestones, joys, and sorrows. You can put a note in the chat on Zoom, and if you'd like us to read your joy or sorrow next week, please fill out a card before service at the small table in the back of the sanctuary. Today I have two so far. Today, Sam and Michelle want to share happy birthday wishes to their best oldest daughter on the planet, Daryl Ann Lovell. Love, Mom and Dad. And next we have from Laurel Harden. She says that late last night, my daughter-in-law Paula Hartley celebrated producing a fabulous dance performance, a grand gala of stars using ballet studio performers and international stars, and I got to see it at the Orpheum Theater with Bunny and Dale. How exciting. Let's check on chat. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any joys or sorrows so far on chat. Okay. Alrighty. May our joys and sorrows, those named and those held in silent sanctuaries of our heart, help us draw closer and care for each other. I want to invite you to a time of meditation and prayer. So, let's take a moment to arrive together. Let your body settle. Take a slow breath in and let it out. In this space, we often talk about values, dignity, compassion, connection. But those values aren't just things we believe. They're choices that we make again and again in real and practical ways. Radical inclusion is one of those choices, but it's not a buzzword or a posture. It's work. It means shifting our habits, our expectations, our spaces, so that more people can show up fully as themselves. Inclusion asks us to plan before someone tells us what they need, to assume diversity of body, mind, culture, and experience, and to expect that people have complex stories, and to build our communities with that understanding at the center. As a middle school teacher, I've seen what this can look like. I've taught students displaced by war, navigating a new language, and new systems. I've worked with students in special education whose ways of learning are often sidelined. Inclusion in those moments isn't just an extra step at all, it's the baseline. And when we do it right, students don't just participate, they lead, and they connect, and they grow. Let this be a moment to reflect. What would it take for all of us to belong more fully here? And what would it mean to design for that? Take one more breath in. Exhale. Let's move forward with intention. Amen and blessed be.
So occasionally, the Association for UU Music Ministries holds a new hymn competition. Oh, thank you for relighting the chalice. Really appreciate it. It is symbolic, but we do it every week. It's a ritual. It's important. Maybe I'll just wait for a moment while we get that done. Beautiful. So I have a new song to teach you. It is like I was about to say, every now and then the Association for UU Music Ministries holds a competition for a new hymn, and different Unitarian Universalists submit their songs. And I really liked the song that won in 2018. It's called Stonecatcher, and it's by Carol Cowett, who has been the principal musician at White Bear UU Church, just outside of St. Paul, Minnesota, for about 27 years. And they sing it up there all the time. And I've never brought it in. It just hasn't seemed right. So go ahead and put the lyrics up, Rob, so they can take a look. And I'll say, let's listen to the melody once on piano. Jump to the first page of lyrics so they can get a head start. Once on piano, and then it's meant to be a cappella with clapping stones. So We'll sing it a cappella, and then once you get it on the second time through, I'll invite you to clap. Sounds good? Take a listen. Feel free to sing along. Here we go. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. I'd catch all the sorrow that I could in a day. Then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on. Let's stand, folks, here we go. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. Anger, the anger that I could in a day. Then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. Terror, terror that I could in a day. Then I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. One morning I woke up and I knew what to do. I'd catch all the stones that everyone threw. Boredom. I'd catch all the boredom that I could in a day. I'd take all the stones and I'd throw them away. Don't ask why. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. Don't ask why. Don't ask why, say we must all be free. Don't ask when, say you can count on me. Thank you all. Please be seated.
In my classroom, I don't always use the phrase radical inclusion, but I live it every day. I teach 7th grade social studies, and the last few years I've had students from Ukraine and Palestine, students who have fled violence and instability, who are starting over in a new country and in a new language. I have students who fear deportation of their family members. I've had students in special education whose strengths are often overlooked because they don't fit into the standardized mold. Inclusion for me has meant shifting the way I think about teaching. It's not about offering help when someone asks. It's about designing my lessons from the start that assume my students will come in with a wide range of needs and experiences. It means I don't wait for the exception. I plan for complexity and remain flexible. CB calls this preemptive radical inclusion. That language resonates deeply with me because it's not just about who shows up, it's about who might, who we haven't yet seen, who hasn't felt safe enough to enter the room. This work is not always easy. It requires rethinking old systems. It requires listening, adjusting, and sometimes being uncomfortable. But I've seen what happens when we do it. Students who were silent begin to speak, and students who were uncertain begin to lead. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about staying committed. CB, thank you for giving us all something to carry forward into our classrooms, our congregations, and our everyday lives.
All Oliver, it's really good to have you in the pulpit. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Okay, one more song for you before the sermon. This one is by my dear friend Hal Walker, who for many, many years was the music director at the UU congregation in Kent, Ohio, and he gave me permission to arrange it for our choir. It's called Will You Love, and it features today Bill Snowden asking the questions.
Will you love, 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 will you love?
Yes, I will. 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 Yes, I will.
Can you feel, 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 can you feel?
Yes, I can. 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 Yes, I can.
And are you true? 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 Are you true?
The moment I saw your face is the moment I remember well. I was born into my body and I was changed into myself.
Will you love? 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 Will you love?
Yes, I will. 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 The moment I saw your face is the moment I remember well. I was born into my body and I was changed into
I was born into my body and I was changed into myself.
So is the plan to make me cry before every sermon? That was glorious. Thank you. And I have to, I know it's going to make the sermon longer, but I came here from Massachusetts to Arizona to the desert, and the water y'all are giving me is called liquid death. This is not the relationship I thought y'all had with water. It is a blessing to be here. It is, I have been so gratefully and gracefully welcomed, generously, that's the G word I was looking for, so generously welcomed. I'm going to talk about preemptive radical inclusion, although it's been done. It is pretty simple on one level. Those of us who hold any kind of leadership responsibility, which I understand to be all of us at different times and in different ways, we have the responsibility to learn, change, and grow in order to preemptively create radical changes and circumstances that will include people in our collective movement towards equity, justice, and liberation. We choose to all get free together. Now, an example of what I mean might be preemptive, might be putting access ramps in buildings wherever there are stairs. We don't wait until we know someone needs it to build it. Physical accessibility and universal design can simply be part of how we do business. In the process, those of us who use wheels to get around will experience more justice and equity in our ability to move through the world. And whether we use wheels or have another reason that ramps are more useful for us, we all change our perspective and attitude. We all begin to notice where there aren't ramps, and we can choose to do something about it. But I'm getting all way ahead of myself. Last week I mentioned that I come from 400 years of Puritan and other settler English and Scottish New Englanders, from people with names like Harbottle Grimscott. People who cling to offensively radical individualism, the idea of survival of the fittest, and the absolute assuredness that our way is the best way and the only way. Puritans weren't big on feelings or words for feelings. Do you remember mine? I had 3. Mad, sad, and what was the other one again? Mad. Puritans weren't good at noticing their own or other people's feelings. So those of us who come from Puritan roots, those of us who come from other versions of white individualistic and perfectionist culture, and those of us who might not come from it, but nonetheless swim in the waters. Well, this is a really tough time to be us. What with our individualism and not many feeling words in a world that is devastated, hurt, and violent. Continuing pandemic, genocides, totalitarianism, right-wing fascism taking over our federal government, the removal of individual choice for reproductive and gender health care, and so much more. It's a fire hose. Individualism and not many feeling words is really not doing us a favor right now. Will you take a breath with me? I was raised on a small self-sustenance farm, so my roots were not just Puritan, but I was raised, socialized with cows, and with a strong belief in productivity, American exceptionalism, and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I was raised to think carefully and logically about something. If our old Ford tractor wouldn't start, it had to be a problem with fuel, fire, or air. Many of you remember when you could fix your own cars. Fuel, fire, or air. I was raised to know how to think, to believe that there was just the one way to approach things, and since I was good at it, the thinking, I would of course be right. Those of us descended from subtler colonialists, those of us who have been part of the structures of the erstwhile democracy those colonialists set up, we live in a system designed to benefit us first and foremost. Designed so that it would make sense to us the way things have been. It's easy to believe that we're best at the thinking when our experience of what our lives are like is consistent with what we were taught to expect. So many of us were raised to believe our own thoughts and ideas so much that we might not even notice when we're having an idea instead of remembering a fact. We have a thought and assume it's true. Now, it's not uncomplicated because some of us were told both we're the best and also we don't know anything because we're a girl, because our brains work differently, because. So it's not uncomplicated. But so many of us were raised to believe our thoughts and assume that our personal experience is normative. Now, I promised to tell you how I am my own cautionary tale. In my own life, relying on my own assessment of other people and their experience has led to some unfortunate circumstances. When I went to seminary in the late 1980s as a young adult, I was still quite confident that I knew so much. I was super smart. It was seminary where I first experienced someone who told me they were allergic to gluten and wheat. Gluten, I asked. Who's allergic to gluten? Humans have been eating wheat as a basic staple for thousands of years. People aren't allergic to staples. This tone of voice, this look on my face, this lip twitch that only happens for the feeling of contempt. But I still didn't know my feeling words, so I was pretty sure that only other people were contemptuous. Then there was someone else who kept asking us not to wear perfume because she was allergic to scents. How could you be allergic to scents? Smell is just smelling. No one's allergic to smelling. People have been smelling things for thousands of years. Yeah, that's right. But you know what? I'm about to explain how I was wrong about that. I didn't have enough knowledge to understand that the smell of something that's a chemical compound can be ingested through the nose just as we might ingest something by eating. If someone is sensitive to a chemical, it will get in their body. I didn't have enough knowledge to understand that that's how it worked. I'd like to give myself a little credit because it was the late 80s, but still. There's an and oh my goodness, an and I couldn't simply believe them. I substituted my personal experience of no sensitivity to perfume for this woman's lived experience. My life experience and what I had been taught up to that moment trumped hers. See what I did there? It trumped hers, but it trumped hers not just in my head, but to the extent that I mocked her. It is only slightly good raising that I didn't mock her to her face, but I mocked her. Now, subsequently, and possibly as proof of a deity that exists solely to provide me with awkward learning opportunities, I've become a person with celiac disease who can't eat even microscopic bits of gluten because the tiniest speck makes my body, my immune system attack itself and, let's just say, wreak havoc. Oh, but wait, there's more. Yeah, I don't, it takes many times for me to learn a thing. I'm also now a person who's incredibly sensitive to petroleum products and chemical compounds and flowers and trees, pretty much nature. Lots of things that have been around for thousands and thousands of years. So I've been this person who used my own experience to judge others, and I called it unfortunate in the little intro moment, and I can find and pull some humor from it now as a cautionary tale, but the truth is, and we must tell the truth, my attitude and my behavior were harmful. I hurt people. I had to learn to believe people when they told me about an experience that I do not share. Just as I have had to learn to believe the emerging consensus of a group when they share their experience of life in this country, experiences in history that were missing from the schooling and Captain Kangaroo television of my childhood. This meant that I had to learn not to automatically believe what I think. Because my automatic thinking happened within the framework that I had been taught. I had to learn to notice and differentiate ideas from truths, hypotheses from facts. I had to recognize that when there's a sudden moment of something, what I think first is usually what I was taught earliest. It might not be what I believe or what I even know now to be true, but those automatic thoughts came from nonsense. Last week I told you as a child I was considered a failed girl, a tomboy. And as an adult, it took a long time to find language for my gender. And finally, I can simply say I'm non-binary. I'm genderqueer. And I still make mistakes sometimes because change is, in fact, hard. The difficulty of change is not an excuse, but it is a reality. When today's story was written in 1975, Billy Bixby's pronoun was he. But a couple years ago, Billy let me know that it was they now. I don't always remember when I'm telling the story and I look up from my script. Sometimes I misgender Billy, and it's really harmful. It seems a little insult, but even when unintended, it's cumulative. If everyone does it just a few times, a person can experience being misgendered hundreds of times in a day. My job, my responsibility as a human, as a Unitarian Universalist, is to believe Billy when they tell me who they are. When I make a mistake, notice it so that I can correct it, and practice in private so that I don't cause more harm. I don't wait to practice right in front of people. Long before I had my own I could have had a V8 moment about gender, I had a UU employee who used they and them as their pronouns. I practiced in my car every day on the way to work. Adrian is working today. They will want to ask me questions. I want to be respectful of them. I wonder what they have planned for the day. I wonder if they sent out all those emails to the parents I asked them to send out. The answer was often no. But because I didn't misgender them, we were able to focus on our work together, not on injuries that I had caused. It's my job to practice so that I get it right, to notice if I mess up at least. Pronouns, here's the thing, pronouns are designed to go unnoticed. Pronouns are stand-ins, as it were, for the nouns that are our names. They're designed as just little blip placeholders, and so if they are meant to be invisible stand-ins for names, we must choose to notice them. Now, the thing is, we live in a world where not everyone corrects themselves or notices that they use the wrong pronoun for a person. Some people even will deny my and Billy's experience. All too often, people say, non-binary? That's not a thing. I've never heard of it. I can't imagine it. No one's non-binary. There have been men and women for thousands of years, and that's it. Where I need people to believe me, to accept my experience in the emerging consensus among gender nonconforming people and the many, many non-Western, non-Christian cultures that understand there are more than two genders, people instead substitute their judgment and experience. Or maybe they can accept that it's a thing. But it's just a little thing. It's not a big thing. Just a little bit of gluten. Just, my hairspray is scented, but I won't put on perfume. Just a little bit of misgendering. Feeding people well, not wearing fragrances that will make them ill, using their right names and pronouns, and wearing masks are actions that might be uncomfortable or awkward, but those are actions that radically increase the capacity of our community to be meaningfully welcoming. Your willingness to mask means I will not go home with the multitude of what happens in my body. I won't go home with a virus that I can't afford to have physically or financially, and I won't take it to my parents because you're all willing to be a little uncomfortable for an hour, and so I thank you for that. This is preemptive radical inclusion, and it is not simple, and it is often not comfortable. So, but here I am, right? I'm the person who has both harmed others and I have been harmed. I've been the person who doesn't believe someone's experience and substitutes my thoughts, and I'm a person who other people don't believe my experience. Now, I don't have to bear shame over this. When we know better, we do better. But I do need to be intentional about learning so that I can know better and do better. I don't learn this stuff by accident. For me to be preemptively and radically inclusive of people, I must deeply recognize that they experience their life and circumstances in society in ways that I could not. Not just in ways I don't, but in ways I couldn't. Unlike what I was taught in social studies, and I know you don't teach this, I will never know what it is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I will never know what it is to be a young black man pulled over by the police. What I can do is to believe people when they share what it is like to drive while black and brown in America. I've made the idea, don't believe everything you think, a real part of my core perspective. It means that I have to notice when my assumptions and other people's statements don't match up, and I must lean into the discomfort of the possibility that I am wrong. I hate being wrong. I do. But that's my ethical obligation. I can't reach first to someone else to make them prove that their experience is real, doubling down on a challenge when they have just shared something vulnerable. I first must look into myself to explore why am I so certain about their life. When I do this right, it is a remarkably humbling practice. And it's one of the practices we'll work with next Saturday. It's going to be fun. Preemptive radical inclusion means that we, all of us, individually and collectively, seek the emerging consensus of groups who are marginalized and oppressed in ways we are not, so that we can prepare ourselves and become radically inclusive. To create material conditions of welcome and inclusion by assuming that everyone is already and always in the room. We don't wait for them to put up their hand. We make sure that what is needed is present. We must be willing to engage stories and experiences of those who are marginalized in ways that we bear privilege, and keep bearing witness for the dual purpose of witness, which is life-saving, and self-reflection and change, which leads us to increase equity and justice, which is life-saving. In this way, we who are cisgender learn about the oppression of trans people by attending to trans people. We who are white learn about how people of color experience marginalization and oppression. We witness, we reflect on ourselves, and we change. UU sought out emerging consensus when we engaged in the white supremacy teach-in, widening the circle of concern, beloved conversations, by collectively engaging in the ideas and experiences of the UUA's Common Read each year. It's not one book or 2 workshops that does it, though, but a series of choices we make about learning so much of what was kept from us in our previous or formal education. We might choose to listen to podcasts and watch documentaries about oppression and justice movements instead of choosing another repeat of our favorite soothing British mystery, cooking show, or the excitement of a sports ball game. We may join recovery groups that help us heal from past injuries or from the patterns that we developed to cope with those injuries so that we are stronger to resist without crumbling. We individually and collectively make decisions to increase our ability to create equity and justice. Now, some of us have made it this far in our lives believing in pulling oneself up by their bootstraps. And some of us found out for the first time at the beginning of the pandemic what it is like if it turns out the boots are fragile or someone has made it impossible to have or use the straps. Others of us have been working longer to figure out and fight how individualism has been harming us. Some of us learned that radical individualism is a myth created and supported by a community of radical individualists who helped each other. Maybe remember that those Puritans built their structures together, that they were taught how to farm on North American soil by indigenous people who willingly shared what they knew. They didn't understand that the Puritans and other Europeans were taking, not sharing, the land. Or maybe we remember that women fed Henry David Thoreau dinner every night and did his laundry while he was off in the woods. And he came home to do chores. Or that Jack Kerouac came home to his mom for months at a time so that she could nurse him back to health after his individualistic adventures. Radical individualism is a lie perpetuated by a culture that is designed for patriarchy, white supremacy, and extractive capitalism. Radical individualism is a lie perpetuated by a culture that is designed for patriarchy, white supremacy, and extractive capitalism. And it is, yes. Evil, for those who didn't say, it is in everything. So many of us have bought into the ways these systems lead us to deny even ourselves and each other. But in the service of other people's power and money, and in ways we don't even notice. We think it's in the service of our power and our money, but it is not. In our current political and social situation, being inclusive is taking on a whole new frame. It's not simply welcoming someone at the door with a smile or restructuring our language to include people of other genders. Inclusion itself is on the list of the federal government's stated forbidden concepts and practices. My dad asked me, do you do DEI? I said, yes, but the president is not the boss of me. We are not the government. We are Unitarian Universalists, and we do what is right. Preemptive radical inclusion means that it is a faith commitment to constantly work to increase our capacity to ensure that everyone's needs are being met, even as those needs are changing, executive order by executive order. Even as those needs are under assault from those who would deny human rights to some people, reproductive and gender health care, ban learning about GLBTQ plus people, reading the works of Black scholars, shut down great swaths of the government in order to privatize it into the hands of just a few. So preemptive radical inclusion is to resist, to be radically inclusive, to save democracy. We must choose not to believe everything we think. They've gotten really good at manipulating us. We must check our thoughts to determine if they're beliefs masquerading as fact. We must notice when words about something like truth, justice, and the American way come out of our mouths, if they echo what we were taught early in life, or if they are meaningfully influenced by those most impacted by injustices. And some of us are most impacted by injustices. We choose day after day to practice new ways of speaking and acting, to unlearn the nonsense as fast as we can in order to bend the moral and material arc of the universe towards justice. That man and that other man are taking a sledgehammer to that arc right now. We don't have to help, and in fact, we can do our work. As the political and social landscape shifts ever more into totalitarianism, fascism, there is a dragon, and we have to tell the truth about it. And it's a big dragon. It's actually a big dragon. But if we don't tell the exact truth about everything, then it is totalitarians who get to say how big, how strong, how powerful, and how true it is. Rebecca Solnit this week said, "The onslaught is meant to convince us that they are omniscient and irresistible, but what they are is volatile and vulnerable." Alexis Pauline Gumbs says that freedom is not a secret, it is a practice. We can get stronger and more truthful, not just about them, but about ourselves. We must practice reaching out to one another in new ways. We must offer and accept help in different ways than we may used to. We can practice and live into the reality that we believe that all of us actually means all of us. And I know we can, because that's who we are, Unitarian Universalists. We are people who can choose to act preemptively to make the world a better place. Imperfect action for sure. That's why we practice. Nod your heads. Yeah. We're going to screw up, and then we're going to try again. Because we do it with commitment and within covenant. We can choose to learn what we need in order to create an inclusion, in order to develop a beloved community that moves us closer to justice. We can choose to all get free together. Do you choose this? Yes. Amen. Blessed be. Amen.
I'll have you back up standing in just a moment. Thank you, CB. Our service will be over shortly. Remember to reach out to someone new or that you haven't seen in a while afterwards. Our coffee hour will be on the patio after service. Our exploration hour activities for both children and adults start at noon and will be listed on that screen. And maybe we close with Libby Roderick. Go ahead. We close with Libby Roderick's anthem, How Could Anyone? And maybe we could think of this as practicing the right way to respond when somebody tells us something about their experience that's different than our own. Please feel free to stand and let's sing together. Once more.
As you go from this place into the rest of your day, love one another. I don't know when I turned short. As you go from this place into the rest of your day, love one another. Claim compassion. Recognize the dragons and tell the truth about them so that we, together, will change the world. Amen.